Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hey there, I'm Colin Parker. I am the head of the Scavengers Network, an indie network of creators that mostly does podcasting, but, we also do a little streaming and some video content as well. And over at that network, I am what many affectionately call the pod boss, running mostly just like the back end of the network, but I also do some content creation myself. I am a host, editor, and producer for Myth Takes, It Jams for Thee, and Timeline Scavengers. Myth Takes is a tabletop role-playing actual play podcast, currently doing Monster of the Week for Season 1. It Jams for Thee is a show that releases one episode a year on Michael Jordan's birthday, which is February 17th. And on that show, we rewatch the 1996 classic film Space Jam. And then, of course, Timeline Scavengers is a show about putting every scene in the MCU in historical order. That is a show that is designed to last forever because the MCU keeps putting out movies and TV shows, and I keep getting older, so I think that I will end before that show does. But for video games, a lot of my favorites are very sci-fi heavy. You've got Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, Mass Effect, Fallout, BioShock. But as someone who runs a Marvel podcast, perhaps it won't be too shocking when I tell you that Spider-Man is my #1 favorite superhero of all time. So when they announced another Spider-Man game, but as a PS4 exclusive, I knew that it was finally time to buy a PS4 and make the investment of a lifetime. And honestly, I think it paid off. And before I get into everything that I love, I want to take a brief moment to tell you that there is one thing that I think deserves some fair warning and criticism for this game. This game lies heavily on copaganda. Spidey has the police captain on speed dial. They always ask favors of each other. He even does this bit with her when he's on the phone where he'll play a role that he made up called Spider Cop. Half Spider-Man, half cop. I don't know. He's far too chummy with them. From a narrative standpoint, I somewhat understand this. When you're not the dark and brooding Batman type, and you're not impervious to bullets, you kind of want to remain on good terms with people who could make your job unbelievably difficult. They could attempt to bring you in, or worse, they could try to just shoot and kill. By being, I hate to say this, of service to them, making friends, playing buddy-buddy, it kind of guarantees Peter Parker that they'll either like him or at least tolerate him and not buy into J. Jonah Jameson's portrayal of him. In the game and in a lot of the Marvel media, cops are not portrayed as being dangerous to the citizens. In real life, on social media and TV, it's just plain old living our day-to-day lives, and we see cops very differently. The militaristic cop force across America is about as dangerous to real everyday people as someone like the Rhino or Doc Ock and, all those sorts of folks that are, terrorizing the people of New York in these pop culture media formats that we take in. So it does leave some criticism on the table for perhaps addressing the very different worlds that we live in. With that kind of sadder sentiment out of the way, the rest of the game, though, is truly a thing of beauty. The game is about a much older Peter Parker. He's already out of high school and out of college. He's been in the game for a long while. He has an established life of both Peter and Spider-Man, and the game starts off showing his apartment and all the things that he holds dear, which is not a lot because he doesn't have much money or many possessions, but the things that he's created are all around him. The radio is going off with chatter, and they're talking about taking down Wilson Fisk, and it's all hands on deck. And there's some really awesome moments of seeing pieces of the suit whisked around the room and then donning the mask. And you see him as he jumps out the window, and you're immediately in the world of Spider-Man. You just start off the game in the classic Spider-Man costume. And throughout this first, sequence, it gets ripped to shreds while fighting Kingpin and his goons. So using what is at his disposal at his job, working for noted scientist and inventor Dr. Otto Octavius, Peter makes a new and reinforced suit for his spider activities. And I bring this part of it up because this is a part of what I love most about this game. They add new elements of gameplay throughout the game without making it seem like it's impossible to keep up. But all of this helps you get necessary pieces to upgrade your abilities and your spider suits, which you can also carry over into your new game plus. Even after publication, they've made sure to add in new suits from other forms of media, especially the MCU and the Into the Spider-Verse films. I know there's a lot of mixed reactions to Tom Holland's Spider-Man and the involvement of Tony Stark in part of his story, but I do have to say, In my genuine opinion, I think that the best looking Spider-Man suit I've ever seen continues to be the suit from Homecoming and Civil War. The fact that I can craft that suit and play the entire game in that suit if I so choose, or even start a new game and wear it from the literal get-go, it is something that I think may seem small to people, but to someone like me, I feel like it's such a big deal. And it's not just that suit. It's the Noir suit, the Tobey Maguire suit, both versions of the Iron Spider suit, even the new integrated suit from No Way Home, the 2099 suit, all the way down to the bombastic Bagman suit. There is so much lore and attention to detail and love for so many Spider-Man stories just completely crammed into this game. The collectibles all hold Easter eggs and background stories that leap from the page to the screen, and you can take pictures of landmarks to continue to build upon that lore and world of Peter Parker. You also, of course, get a Stan Lee cameo. The world building and customization in this game is pretty fantastic, if I may say so. The second big thing about this game that I love is the actual way you play the game. And I don't mean the story or side missions or gadgets. I just mean simply existing in the world. The swinging mechanic in the game isn't exactly the most perfect or fluid thing I've ever experienced, I know, but it is incredibly fun, and I frequently forget about any complaints or issues that I have with it the moment that I start doing it. Because sometimes when I need to escape the real world for a bit and don't feel like doing anything taxing, I'll just simply boot up this game and I will swing around New York City. I'll go sightseeing, I'll take pictures, whatever I want, but I mostly just swing around and enjoy how fun and relaxing it truly is. The world seems so much different experiencing it in a way that basically no one else could ever experience it. And finally, I want to bring it home with the story. Much like the world building and the deep lore I mentioned from the Easter eggs and suit crafting, the story is a true love letter to Spider-Man. There's already mysteries and things we know or have teased that aren't paid off yet, but they're not paid off in a way that makes you know it goes deeper and that there are still more stories to tell. There's new relationships, there's old relationships, and all of them are juggled, respected, or sometimes destroyed or lost along the way. There's history between the characters. They do a lot with showing instead of explaining it all away. And for the big fans who know these characters outside of the game, we get to see some of these stories happen in real time, with knowledge that Peter doesn't have until it's too late. The game has been out for quite a while, so I'm going to give a spoiler, but if you don't want to hear it because you want to play it, it'll be over in about 45 seconds. So this is your last chance to scoot forward. And here it is. Near the beginning of the game, you meet both Norman Osborn and Dr. Otto Octavius. However, neither of them are supervillains yet. They're who they were before. And the way that the game sets up and enacts Otto's downfall and eventual heel turn is beautiful, tragic, and it gives me chills every time we get there. The ending of the game, which I won't spoil whatsoever, stays in line with something that I think makes Marvel a powerful storytelling machine. In the end, the world, city, universe, etc., they win the day. But the heroes always still end up losing, just a little bit. And what Peter loses in this game is heavy and tragic, and I can't get through the ending without getting at least somewhat misty-eyed. I fear my description doesn't say enough, and I think it's because I could talk about this game for hours. I could talk about Spider-Man for days, but I think I'm going to leave it on this. There are few games that can constantly bring me back to play through it entirely again and again and again. This game instantly had that effect on me. The games of media that we partake in that change our lives stay with us. And this one will always stay with me. If you want to hear me talk more about Spider-Man or all of Marvel, Star Wars, or more, you can follow me on Twitter at Colin M. Parker. I can guarantee that I will be doing a playthrough of this on either Twitch or YouTube or something. And I'll do the same with Avengers now that they've added my boy into that game too. And like I mentioned at the top, I'm in that show Timeline Scavengers. That's also somewhat related to that. So you can follow Timeline Scav on Twitter and check out that show. We are literally just starting Captain America right now, and I think that that's exciting because we're also simultaneously doing the first episode of What If. So I think that that's great. And one last plug, if I can, Colin M. Parker on TikTok as well, because I'm doing a bunch of Marvel and Star Wars content there these days. That I've been a real big fan of. It's a bunch of stuff all done in 1 minute or less, and I Really like that challenge. With that being said, thank you, true believers, for listening to me go on the wholesome version of a J. Jonah Jameson rant about Spider-Man. As always, I'm Colin M. Parker. Happy gaming.
So, I have a question. Have you ever wanted to get into comics, but you just didn't know where to start? Well, welcome to Comics Quest. I'm JD Martin, and every week I sit down with a guest to talk a comic that I think anybody can pick up and start their comics reading journey. We take a look at psychedelic sci-fi, fantastical action, heart-wrenching love stories, and of course, superheroes. So check us out at certainpov.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.